When Elon Musk's 4-year-old son walked on a live TV, no one expected much. Just a few cute words. Maybe a giggle. What he said instead left millions speechless. By the end of the day, he wasn't just trending. He reminded the world what really matters. The cameras were rolling. The lights were blinding. The audience, filled with parents, reporters, and celebrities, buzzed with quiet excitement. And standing backstage, barely tall enough to reach the microphone, was a 4-year-old boy in tiny sneakers and a bow tie that kept sliding sideways. His name? X, son of Elon Musk. Just minutes before, X had been coloring spaceships on the back of the program pamphlet. Now he was seconds away from stepping on a live TV in front of millions of viewers. No one knew what he was going to say. Not the producers, not the audience, not even Elon. And that was exactly why people would be talking about this moment for a very long time. It all started earlier that week, in a place far less glamorous than a television studio. Elon's kitchen. "Dad, can juice be fuel for rockets?" X was on the floor, legs crisscrossed, building what he claimed was a flying submarine for robots. His small hands were sticky with glue, markers, and whatever he had eaten for breakfast. Elon chuckled. "Not yet, but that's an interesting idea." He was distracted, pacing back and forth, deep in a phone call. Something about a last-minute charity event. Something about needing a young voice with imagination. Then the caller said it. "What if your son spoke?" Elon froze. His eyes flicked down to X, who was now making spaceship sound with his mouth and pretending a banana was a laser. "He's only 4, Elon said into the phone. "He's not ready for that." But a small voice interrupted him. "I can do it," X said proudly. "I talk all the time." At first, it seemed like a sweet idea. Let a cute kid say a few lines about dreams and kindness. Maybe smile for the camera. Then the adults could get back to the serious stuff, raising money for education, talking policy, and showing off well-rehearsed speeches. But as the event approached, something about X started to change. He stopped pretending the microphone at home was just a toy. He started practicing his TV voice in the mirror. He'd point at himself and say, "Hello, I am X. I have something very, very important to say." Elon watched from the doorway, amused but a little nervous. He'd spent years managing launches, risks, and surprises. But nothing had ever felt this unpredictable. Then came the night before the big event. X couldn't sleep. His little mind was racing. He tossed and turned, whispering to himself in the dark. Then, finally, he sat up and called out, "Dad!" Elon walked in, laptop still in hand. "You okay, buddy? I want to say something on TV," X said seriously. "But it's a secret surprise." "A surprise, huh?" Elon raised an eyebrow. "Can you tell me first? Just to make sure it's a good one." X shook his head. "It's nice, but it's a heart thing. I have to say it with all my heart." There was a pause. Then Elon, ever the innovator, decided to take a risk. "Okay," he said. "Say it with your heart. Just be kind. And don't talk about poop." X giggled. "No poop. Promise." Backstage, on the day of the event, the tension was real. The host, a famous TV personality known for charity galas and viral catchphrases, was already warming up the crowd. Bright lights flashed, teleprompters rolled, and makeup artists scrambled to dab away nervous sweat from high-profile foreheads. Elon stood off to the side, trying to remain calm. It wasn't easy. Even in boardrooms, he rarely felt this kind of pressure. He glanced at his son, who was humming to himself and playing with the buttons on his shirt. The innocence was disarming, but so was the confidence. When a stage manager knelt beside X and whispered, "You're up next, kiddo," X simply nodded and said, "Let's go." No fear, no script, just 4-year-old certainty. Elon tried to swallow the lump rising in his throat. The host stepped up to the microphone and smiled wide for the cameras. "And now," she announced, "a very special guest. He's the youngest speaker of the day. And yes, he is the son of Elon Musk." A wave of laughter and applause rolled through the crowd. "Please welcome X Musk." The applause grew louder as X toddled out, climbing up a small stool behind the podium. A staff member adjusted the mic down to his level. X looked out at the sea of faces. Then he looked straight into the red glow of the live broadcast camera. He smiled. What happened next would stun everyone. There were no cue cards, no script, just the soft, clear voice of a 4-year-old boy speaking from somewhere deep and honest. What he said in the next few moments would not only cause a media frenzy, but also make millions of people feel something they hadn't felt in a long time. Wonder, innocence, and maybe even hope. Elon watched, barely breathing, because for all his companies, rockets, and robots, he knew one thing for sure. Nothing could prepare the world for what X was about to say. The room fell completely silent. X stood behind the microphone, barely tall enough to be seen over the podium. His small hands gripped the edge. His sneakers dangled off the stool. Bright lights warmed his face, but he didn't flinch. Not once. He looked out at the audience. Famous faces stared back. CEOs, celebrities, politicians. And behind the cameras, millions more watched from their homes, phones, and streaming screens. He took a breath. And then, in a clear, small voice, he said, "Grown-ups forgot." A soft wave of confusion passed through the audience. People glanced at one another. "Forgot what?" someone whispered. X continued, "You forgot how to dream like kids do. You forgot how to imagine big things. You stopped being curious. You stopped asking, what if?" Now, people were really listening. Even Elon, standing backstage, straightened up. This wasn't just a cute speech. It was a wake-up call. X looked down for a moment, gathering his thoughts like puzzle pieces. Then he spoke again, slower this time. "My daddy makes rockets. They go to space. That's really cool. But do you know what's cooler?" He paused, being nice. A few people in the crowd chuckled, not in a mean way, just surprised. But X wasn't finished. "You can build big things. But if you're mean, they don't matter." Now, it was getting serious. People leaned forward in their seats. Some even stopped filming. This wasn't just a child talking. It felt like truth. Backstage, Elon felt his heart pound faster. He had no idea X was going to say this. He thought maybe X would talk about planets or how he wanted to be a robot astronaut. Something silly, something sweet. But this was real, and the audience could feel it too. Then, X said something no one expected, something that made the room gasp. "Sometimes I see people on the news. They yell, they fight, they say mean things, even when they wear suits and ties." He looked directly into the camera. "I don't want to grow up if I have to be like that." That hit hard, like a punch to the chest, only softer, sadder. The crowd went completely quiet, not even a cough. It wasn't just a kid giving a speech anymore. It was like the world's smallest mirror had been held up to the adults in the room, and they didn't like what they saw. Then X asked a question. "Why can't grown-ups be like kids?" His voice wavered just slightly, like he was holding back emotion. "Kids ask why. Kids say sorry. Kids hug when someone cries." A woman in the audience put a hand to her mouth. A man beside her blinked hard. Elon's hand was now clenched around the corner of a curtain. And still, X wasn't done. He looked down at his notes. Not written words, but crayon scribbles and smiley faces on a napkin. Then he looked up and said, "I brought something." He reached into his small jacket pocket and pulled out a toy. A tiny spaceship made of cardboard and glitter. "I made this for you," he said, holding it up to the audience. "It's not real, but it can go anywhere you want." He smiled. "It's powered by kindness." The crowd murmured. Some people laughed gently. Others teared up. It was the kind of strange, beautiful moment that didn't happen on live TV anymore. And then came the part that truly changed everything. X paused. He looked nervous now, just a little. His hand shook. He glanced toward the side of the stage where Elon stood. Elon nodded once, just a tiny nod. A "you got this" kind of nod. Then X turned back to the microphone and said, "Sometimes my daddy is really busy. Like really busy." He glanced at the crowd, testing the waters. "He builds amazing stuff. Robots, cars, spaceships, tunnels. Sometimes I don't understand all of it. But sometimes I just want him to sit with me and eat pancakes." You could almost hear the breath catch in Elon's chest. X continued, his voice growing softer. "I know he's trying to help the world, but sometimes I wish he'd remember. I'm part of the world, too." Boom. That was it. The crowd froze. A few gasped. Someone whispered, "Wow." Even the cameraman had tears in his eyes. Because now the story had shifted. Now the stakes were real. This wasn't just a little boy talking about being nice. This was a son asking his father to slow down, to listen, to see him. This wasn't about fame anymore. It was about connection. And that's when things started to change. Reporters backstage scrambled to rewrite their headlines. Producers whispered frantically into headsets. Phones lit up as people texted things like, "Did you just see that? Elon Musk's son is saying things no one else has the guts to say. Why is this 4-year-old making me cry?" Meanwhile, Elon stood completely still. In all his years of pushing boundaries, designing futures, and thinking far ahead of everyone else, he had never once felt so completely in the moment. He wanted to rush the stage. He wanted to hug his son. He wanted to say, "I'm listening now." But instead, he waited, because this moment didn't belong to him. It belonged to X. As the final words of X's speech approached, the energy in the room changed. People weren't just impressed. They were moved. They weren't just watching a cute kid anymore. They were watching a tiny voice do something massive. X looked at the crowd one last time. He held out his toy spaceship, eyes wide with hope. "You don't have to be a grown-up to change the world," he said. "You just have to care." Then he stepped away from the microphone. And for 3 full seconds, no one clapped. They just sat there, stunned. And then, like a wave crashing all at once, the room exploded in applause. The applause didn't stop. It rolled like thunder, loud, powerful, and full of emotion. Some people stood up. Others wiped their eyes. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment. It was no longer just a speech. It was a moment people would never forget. Backstage, Elon Musk stood frozen. His son, just 4 years old, had done something extraordinary. He hadn't talked about rockets or robots. He hadn't said anything flashy. He had simply told the truth. And somehow, that was bigger than anything Elon had ever launched into space. The noise finally died down as X walked off stage. He was still holding his glittery cardboard spaceship. His tiny face looked serious, but proud. He saw his dad, and for a moment, nothing else mattered. Elon dropped to one knee and opened his arms. X ran into them. No cameras caught this part. It wasn't for the world. It was just for them. "You did good," Elon whispered. "Really, really good." X looked up at him. "Did you hear me?" Elon nodded. Every word. Within minutes, the speech was everywhere. Clips flooded social media. People reposted it with captions like, "I didn't expect to cry today. This little boy just called out the entire adult world. X must just change how I see everything." Even news channels couldn't ignore it. Every outlet was showing the video on repeat. Headlines screamed, "Elon Musk's 4-year-old son delivers speech that stuns the world. Small voice, big message. X Musk's call for kindness goes viral." But the real surprise hadn't happened yet. People only knew X as Elon Musk's son, a child with a strange name and famous dad. But now they wanted to know more. Who was this kid who spoke with such heart? Where did this deep wisdom come from? That's when stories began to surface. Quiet ones people hadn't paid attention to before. Like the time X visited a children's hospital and brought handmade cards for every patient. Not because of a camera crew. There were none. He just wanted to. Or the time he asked his nanny why some kids didn't have homes. When she couldn't give a simple answer, he said, "Then why don't we just share more?" The more people learned about X, the more they realized something. This wasn't a one-time speech. This was who he was. After the speech, Elon tried to go back to work. Meetings, emails, launch tests, the usual. But something felt different. Off. During a board meeting, he kept thinking about what X had said. "Sometimes I just want him to sit with me and eat pancakes." The words echoed. They wouldn't leave him alone. So that night, instead of checking his messages or reviewing blueprints, Elon made pancakes. Bad ones, actually. They were a little burnt. But X didn't care. They sat on the floor together in pajamas, eating them with their fingers. X smiled. "I like these better than space rockets," he said. Elon laughed. "Yeah? Why?" X shrugged. "Because you're here." And that's when Elon knew, really knew, that something inside him had changed. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about Mars or Tesla or timelines. He was just present. A few days later, Elon called a press conference. People thought it was for a new invention, maybe a robot chef, or an announcement about Mars. But when the cameras turn on, Elon did something he never does. He looked nervous. "I'm not here to talk about tech today," he said. "I'm here to talk about my son." He paused. X reminded me of something important, that being the smartest person in the room doesn't matter if you forget to be kind. He showed me that a 4-year-old can teach the world what some of us forgot: to dream, to feel, to slow down. Then he did something shocking. "I've decided to step away." Gasps filled the room. "I'll still be involved, of course, but I'm giving up day-to-day control of several projects. I'm going to spend more time being a dad." The world was stunned. The man who built rockets was choosing pancakes, and somehow that felt like the boldest move of all. Something strange and beautiful began happening after that. Other CEOs followed his lead. One announced kindness days at work. Another started a foundation for child-led innovation. Teachers played clips of X's speech in classrooms. Kids started writing their own speeches. Some made glittery cardboard spaceships and said things like, "This is powered by hugs." It was like a switch had flipped. People didn't just listen to what X said. They felt it, and they wanted to do better. At first, some people thought he must have been coached. But when a journalist asked Elon directly, he laughed. Nope, that was all him. He explained that X had been asking questions since he could talk. About feelings, about fairness, about space, about why people don't always say sorry. Elon said something else too. "I've taught him how to build things, but he's teaching me how to be a better person." People used to say Elon's legacy would be on Mars. But now people talked about a different kind of legacy, one that began with a cardboard spaceship, a child's voice, and a truth no one expected to hear on live TV. Not from a politician, not from a tech giant, but from a 4-year-old boy named X. And the world listened. For a few days, it felt like the world had changed. People were talking about kindness, slowing down, and listening to children. X's speech was still everywhere, in schools, on news channels, even on coffee mugs and t-shirts that said pancakes over planets. Elon Musk, the man who used to only speak about the future, was suddenly speaking from the heart. The world was in awe. But then, something shifted. Not everyone was happy. At first, it was small, just a few online comments here and there. Why is a 4-year-old giving speeches? This is emotional manipulation, not real leadership. Elon's using his son for attention. Then it spread. Fast. Talk show hosts questioned Elon's motives. Articles popped up with titles like, "Elon Musk steps back or strategically steps away," "Heartfelt or staged," "The truth behind X's speech." People started picking the moment apart, frame by frame. Analysts on news panels debated whether the speech had been planned, scripted, or too perfect. Even some parents joined in. Why is X in the spotlight? Shouldn't he be in preschool? The same internet that lifted X up now started to turn on him. A YouTuber with millions of followers made a long video titled, "I watched the X Musk speech 50 times. Here's what's really going on." He pointed out moments where X paused or looked off stage. "See that?" he said. "That's a cue. Someone's feeding him lines." It wasn't true, but the video went viral anyway. People love a hero story, but they also love to doubt it. Suddenly, even people who had cried during the speech were now saying things like, "Maybe we were tricked." The comments got meaner, harsher, even cruel, and Elon saw every single one. Elon had been through criticism before. He'd been called everything: a genius, a fraud, a robot, a savior. He was used to it, but this was different. This was about his son, a 4-year-old who didn't even know what going viral meant, who thought Twitter was a kind of bird. One night, X asked a simple question. "Daddy, why are people being so loud and mad?" Elon froze. He didn't know how to answer. "Are they mad at me?" Elon pulled him into a hug. "No, buddy. They're just confused. Sometimes people get scared when they hear something true, especially if it comes from someone small." Just when the noise was starting to settle, a new story exploded. A leaked internal email from one of Elon's companies claimed that parts of X's speech had been reviewed using AI. Not rewritten, just checked for flow and clarity. But that was enough. People now had what they needed to confirm their suspicions. See, it was scripted all along. Elon used AI to make his kids sound smarter. Nothing's real anymore. Even though Elon explained that X's ideas were completely his own, and the AI tool only cleaned up some grammar after X had spoken, the damage was done. Truth didn't matter. The story had changed. And now, instead of a sweet message about kindness, people were debating something else. Is this the future of parenting? Should kids be protected from fame? Is Elon trying to build the perfect child? X was only 4, but he was smart. Too smart, maybe. He could feel that something was wrong. He noticed the whispers when he went outside. He saw people pointing at him in cafes. He once asked his dad, "Why are they looking like I did something bad?" It broke Elon's heart. He tried to distract X with puzzles, games, pancakes, and movie nights. But even X started to stay quieter, less curious, less playful. One night, Elon found X sitting in his room with a cardboard spaceship, now a little bent and worn. X looked up and said, "Maybe I shouldn't have talked." That was the moment that shook Elon the most. The next day, Elon made a decision. He posted a message on every platform he owned. No flashy videos, just words. "I've made mistakes in my life, but letting my son feel guilty for speaking the truth should never be one of them." X spoke from his heart. If the world wasn't ready to hear it, that's on us, not on him. We're stepping away from the public for a while. He's 4. He deserves to be 4. It was signed, Elon Musk, proud dad. And then silence. The media tried to keep the fire burning. But without new pictures, new headlines, or new drama, the story faded. Elon and X moved to a small house just outside Austin for a while. No cameras, no interviews, just walks, pancakes, bedtime stories, and real life. Elon stopped checking trending topics. X went back to drawing planets with faces and asking questions like, "What do trees think about?" It wasn't fame. It was peace. And maybe, just maybe, that was more powerful than any viral moment. No one knew what would come next. Would X return to the spotlight? Would Elon come back to tech even stronger? Would the world remember the speech, or just the backlash? That was the mystery. But for now, one thing was clear. The smallest voice had made the biggest noise. And even if the world tried to twist it, the truth had already been spoken. And some people, the ones who really listened, would never forget it. The noise that once surrounded Musk and his viral speech had quieted, but was far from gone. The media had moved on, but not without leaving a trail of lingering questions. The world had seen a child's heartfelt words and assumed it was a moment of greatness. But as quickly as the applause had come, the criticism followed. What had started as admiration now felt like an endless storm. But as the dust began to settle, something shifted again. It was a sunny Tuesday when Elon Musk posted again. This time, it wasn't a statement. It wasn't a defense. It wasn't an apology. It was a simple picture. In it, X was standing on the hood of a Tesla in the backyard, holding up a small plastic rocket. His face, free of makeup or press angles, was beaming with joy. There were no words in the photo, but the caption read, "To infinity and beyond at our own pace." Elon Musk. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a call to action. It was just life. And suddenly, the internet was flooded with comments. This is how it should be. Let the kid be a kid. A reminder that there's more to life than all the noise. Maybe Elon was right to take a step back. There was something so raw about that image. Something real. It was a snapshot of a father and son enjoying their time without the world watching. It was a peaceful image after so much chaos. And in that quiet moment, people began to realize something important. Maybe the true power of X's speech wasn't in the message itself, but in what it symbolized. As the days went on, something in the collective mindset began to change. The online world, which had once been a battlefield, started to shift again, this time in X and Elon's favor. The backlash wasn't forgotten, but people started to see the bigger picture. The media cycle that had once chewed up X's words now seemed empty in comparison to the truth that had been revealed. People who had originally criticized the speech for being staged began to backpedal. Okay, maybe we were too quick to judge. This kid's not a puppet. He's a reflection of something we've lost. Even a late-night talk show host, who had poked fun at X's perfect delivery, were starting to change their tune. On a popular show, one host said, "I was wrong. I thought it was all scripted, but I think I missed the point." X didn't just speak words. He spoke from a place that most of us have forgotten how to access: pure honesty. It was a subtle redemption. The media was not loud and aggressive in its change of heart. Instead, it was like the collective consciousness had woken up to the idea that maybe the world was more ready for a message of kindness than they had realized. X, in his own way, had become a symbol of vulnerability. His simple words about pancakes and slowing down had tapped into a universal truth that many had long since ignored. People began sharing stories about how they had been so busy rushing through life that they'd forgotten the joy of taking their time. Parents posted photos of their kids making pancakes or playing in their backyard, with captions like, "Thank you, X, for reminding us what really matters." Sometimes it's the simplest things that change everything. The viral wave that once felt like a burden had become a movement, one focused on kindness, slowness, and living in the moment. But the most surprising part of this turning point, it wasn't just the adults who were speaking up. The kids were too. In schools across the country, children started talking about the speech. Teachers said it sparked conversations in class about kindness, the importance of listening to others, and how to speak from heart. One teacher tweeted, "I thought I was teaching them about history today, but instead, they taught me about the power of listening." X had no idea he had sparked a movement. He was just 4 years old, still drawing pictures of his imaginary rocket ships and asking his dad what trees think. But the world had embraced his words. Elon Musk had always been a visionary. He had built companies that reached for the stars, literally and figuratively. But in that moment, after seeing the shift in public sentiment, he realized something profound. His greatest achievement wasn't the rockets, the cars, or the companies. It was X. It was the message that his son, in his purest, most innocent form, had brought to the world. Elon had always been known for his ambitious, high-tech projects. But now, his most meaningful project wasn't about pushing humanity to Mars. It was about pushing the world to slow down, to think, to listen, and to be kind. And perhaps, most importantly, to recognize that sometimes the loudest voices in the room aren't the ones shouting the hardest. Sometimes they're the smallest voices speaking from a place of truth. A month later, a major news outlet issued a rare apology. "We apologize to X Musk for doubting his message. What began as a moment of curiosity and skepticism has evolved into a reminder about the power of a child's honesty. We were quick to judge, and we were wrong." It wasn't just the news. Everywhere you looked, there were stories of redemption. The public wasn't just forgiving X, they were celebrating him. There were new headlines: "The child who changed the world's pace." X Musk, a lesson in honesty. Why X's speech was exactly what we needed to hear. And for once, the narrative was about more than just Elon Musk and his empire. It was about the lesson that had been learned, one that would echo far beyond the viral video. With the media storm settling down, Elon and X were free to be themselves again. Elon returned to his work, but now he made sure to protect their privacy. No more public speeches, no more viral moments, just a father and son enjoying life. And X, he went back to being a 4-year-old, playing with his toys, asking questions, and living in the moment. He didn't know it, but the world had shifted, and his simple words had left a lasting impact. For the first time in a long time, the world had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the most important message comes from the smallest voice. And as for Elon Musk, his son had just shown him what real power was: the power of truth, the power of simplicity, and the power of kindness. By now, the world had moved past the initial buzz and chaos surrounding X Musk's viral moment. What had started as an innocent slip-up, a child's unscripted speech, had evolved into something far more powerful than anyone could have imagined. The media storm had died down, but its impact remained. And then the world witnessed a true turnaround. It wasn't just the media's softening stance on X and Elon. It wasn't the growing acceptance of a message that many had once dismissed. It was the extraordinary moment when the ripple effects of X's speech spread across the world, reaching heights no one could have predicted. It started subtly with a few local initiatives, but soon it was everywhere. Schools began adopting new ways of teaching, encouraging children to speak openly and honestly, without fear of judgment. The focus shifted from rigid academic goals to fostering emotional intelligence and kindness. Teachers held workshops for parents on how to embrace their children's creativity and curiosity, rather than imposing strict structures. Across social media, influencers who had once been skeptical of X's viral speech now found themselves echoing his words. Some influencers even launched campaigns focused on slowing down and reconnecting with the people around them. One particularly moving campaign was called #PauseAndListen. It challenged people to take a day off from their fast-paced lives and simply listen to the world around them, to their children, to their friends, to their own thoughts. The campaign went viral, and millions of people joined in. As more and more people embraced this idea of living life at a slower, more thoughtful pace, a new kind of optimism began to take hold. People were more mindful of their time. They spent it more wisely. Families sat down for meals together. People took walks in nature. Social media posts were filled with photos of simple, joyful moments. A child's artwork, a pet playing in the backyard, a family enjoying a quiet evening at home. The idea of slowing down became a global mantra. And at the heart of it all was X's speech, a moment of innocent truth that had sparked an entire movement. What was even more astonishing than the global response was how X had become a symbol of change, even though he was just a 4-year-old child. It wasn't that people looked at him as a wise philosopher or a guru. No, it was more about how his message had resonated with something deep within everyone. People saw X as a beacon of innocence, reminding them of the simple truths they had forgotten in the noise of their busy lives. Despite being so young, X's words had power. And that power wasn't just in what he said. It was in how he made people feel. In a world where everyone was constantly chasing after something, success, wealth, status, X reminded them of what they already had. He reminded them of the importance of slowing down, of being present, and of finding joy in the simple moments of life. The child had, unknowingly, changed the course of many people's lives. X's story was no longer just about a viral moment. It was about the people who had been touched by it, the millions of parents, teachers, and everyday people who had found something meaningful in his words. But there was something else, something just as important: the way people rallied behind X and Elon Musk. Elon had always been a divisive figure. Some admired him for his groundbreaking innovations, while others criticized his unconventional ways. But now, in this new era shaped by X's speech, even some of Elon's harshest critics began to soften their views. They saw him in a new light, not as the billionaire inventor, but as a father doing his best to protect his son in a world that could sometimes be cruel. Many people began to support Elon not just for his business achievements, but for his ability to step back and allow his son to speak freely without manipulating or controlling the narrative. Elon Musk's personal growth during this time was almost as remarkable as X's. Instead of fighting against the media, he embraced the slower pace that his son had started. He protected his family from the public eye, refusing to allow their private moments to be exploited. It was a moment of humility from one of the most high-profile people in the world. And the public noticed. A few months after the viral incident, something unexpected happened. Elon Musk, who had kept a low profile during the fallout, announced that X would be addressing an international audience. The event was to be held virtually, with millions tuning in to watch. Elon had spoken about the event in passing, but the internet exploded with excitement. It was one of the most anticipated events of the year. How could the child who had gone viral with a simple message speak again? The day arrived, and millions of viewers logged on. The virtual audience was an eclectic mix of people from all walks of life: parents, children, teachers, business leaders, and everyday citizens who had embraced the idea of slowing down. And there, sitting comfortably in a simple chair, was X, 4 years old, calm, and ready to speak. His speech was unlike anything anyone had ever heard before. It wasn't about changing the world with complex ideas or lofty promises. Instead, X spoke in the purest, most honest way possible. He talked about how much he loved playing with his friends, how he wanted everyone to be nice to each other, and how much he loved pancakes. But his words carried the weight of everything that had happened in the months prior. I think we should always be kind to people, even if they don't say nice things. And I think we should take our time. Like when we eat breakfast. It's okay to eat slow. It makes it better, X said, looking directly at the camera, his big eyes full of innocence and sincerity. For a moment, the entire world was silent. You could feel the weight of his words. This wasn't just a child's speech. This was a moment that encapsulated everything the world needed to hear. The message was simple, but it had the power to change everything. And as the camera zoomed out and the event came to a close, something remarkable happened. People weren't just clapping or leaving the event. They were inspired. They were ready for the change that X had so quietly set in motion. It wasn't about how smart he was. It was about his honesty, his pure, undiluted truth. X's speech didn't just mark a moment in time. It marked a turning point. The world, which had been moving faster and faster, now began to slow down. People started rethinking their priorities. What really mattered? Was it success at any cost? Or was it the relationships we built, the moments we shared, and the kindness we showed to others? X's message didn't just resonate with a few people. It resonated with millions. And as the world took notice, it became clear the power of a child's simple words could create a ripple effect unlike anything else. The viral moment that once seemed like a fleeting trend had turned into a movement that was here to stay. The days following X's powerful speech were nothing short of extraordinary. What started as a simple, innocent moment of honesty had now transformed into a global movement. People around the world were rethinking the way they lived, working together to create a more thoughtful, kind, and intentional society. The ripple effects of X's message were felt far and wide. The world had slowed down, but it had also found a renewed sense of purpose. But what did this mean for X and Elon Musk? How did their lives change after the storm of attention, the media frenzy, and the overwhelming public response? And most importantly, how would X's message continue to impact the world moving forward? It was clear that things were never going to be the same again. Schools, businesses, and even governments began to take action based on the lessons they had learned from X's speech. Parents who had once been caught up in the pressure of their children's success started to focus on what really mattered: their children's well-being, emotional health, and happiness. Teachers, inspired by the global conversation, shifted their approaches to include more open dialogue, less pressure, and a focus on creativity rather than just grades. Corporations, too, began to change their values. Instead of chasing endless growth and productivity at all costs, many companies turned to work-life balance, well-being programs, and social responsibility. The speed of life slowed down, and people began to question whether they had been living in a rat race for too long. And at the center of it all, X and Elon became symbols of this new world, one that valued people more than profits and human connection over constant productivity. Elon, who had once been seen as a high-powered business mogul consumed by his ambitions, was now being recognized as a father, an individual, and a man who had found balance in his life. The contrast was stark. Elon Musk, who had been the face of ambitious space exploration and cutting-edge technology, was now also the face of slowing down, of taking time for the things that truly mattered. His son, X, had sparked this change with just a few words. But Elon's response to the world's changing attitude was equally powerful. He continued to support X, giving him the space and freedom to express himself, and, in the process, he helped lead by example. For Elon, one of the most significant changes wasn't just in the world, but in his own home. The attention that came with X's viral speech had initially been overwhelming. At first, Elon had struggled with how to protect his family while also managing the growing media circus. But as time passed, he began to see the world differently. He didn't need to fight the media, nor did he need to shield X entirely from the public. What mattered most was being present for his son and creating a space where X could continue to speak freely and authentically. Over the following months, Elon made a conscious decision to step back from some of his high-profile commitments. Instead of focusing solely on his business empire, he spent more time at home with X. They played, laughed, and talked about everything under the sun, from space exploration to simple games of pretend. It was a change that would shape both their lives forever. This new focus on family wasn't just for the cameras or public perception. It was genuine. Elon began to appreciate the small moments, the quiet ones that X had taught him to cherish. They were moments that, before, he might have overlooked in the pursuit of his next big venture. But now, he found himself savoring every second, knowing that time was something precious, not to be wasted. X's influence on Elon's personal life was undeniable. Their bond grew even stronger. As a family, they started doing things together that many people could only dream of. They traveled, they explored, they spent days without the constant noise of the outside world. And in these moments, Elon found peace. As X grew older, the impact of his viral moment continued to shape his life. People who had watched the original video of his speech continued to follow his journey. They saw a young boy growing up with a powerful message of kindness, empathy, and living in the moment. X's story wasn't just a one-off event. It became a legacy. Schools invited him to speak at assemblies and events, where he would often share his thoughts on slowing down, listening to others, and appreciating life's simple pleasures. While other children might have been focused on schoolwork or playing games, X's voice carried weight. He spoke not only to his peers, but to adults as well. And they listened, not because he was a celebrity or a businessman's son, but because of the truth in his words. At just 6 years old, X was already seen as a spokesperson for a new way of thinking. He spoke with clarity and wisdom beyond his years. He had an innate ability to connect with people of all ages, to remind them of what truly mattered. Elon Musk, in many ways, had always been a visionary. He had built companies that changed the world: Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink, all groundbreaking in their own right. But it was X's message, delivered in the most innocent of ways, that would change the course of his personal legacy. Instead of just being known for his technological advancements, Elon was now recognized as a father who had helped a child bring about a shift in the world's priorities. As time went on, Elon used his platform to amplify X's message. He spoke at conferences not just about innovation and technology, but about slowing down and living life with intention. He didn't want the world to forget that there was more to life than success. There was love, family, and connection. Together, father and son became symbols of change, a dynamic duo that reminded the world to slow down and appreciate what truly mattered. In the years to come, X's speech would go down in history as one of the most impactful moments of the 21st century. It wasn't because of the media frenzy or the viral attention. It was because of the deeper message it carried, a message about what it means to live a meaningful life, one that is grounded in kindness, simplicity, and the beauty of everyday moments. While other viral moments faded into the background, X's message lived on, and it continued to shape the way people lived, worked, and connected with one another. It didn't matter how old X was, his voice was heard, and the world was better for it. As X and Elon Musk moved forward, they knew that the journey was far from over. The world was changing, and they were right in the middle of it. But one thing was certain: the legacy they were building, of slowing down, being present, and living with purpose, would live on forever. With that, the story of X's viral moment had come full circle. What began as an innocent slip of the tongue had turned into a movement that forever changed the way the world viewed success, time, and family. And as X grew, the world continued to listen, not because of his age or status, but because of the truth he spoke. And that truth had the power to change everything.